Welcome to Vermontitude, a collaborative effort between Great Eastern Radio, the Brattleboro Reformer, and BCTV to bring you the stories behind the stories on the topics you want to learn more about. Because there's always more, so there'll always be Vermontitude. Hosted by me, Peter Fish Case.
Welcome to Vermontitude. New episodes drop every Tuesday and can be found by going to vermontitude.com, reformer.com, or brattleboro.tv.com, or you can watch it on BCTV. We come to you from the studios of the Innovation Box on Flat Street. Vermontitude is done in collaboration with Great Eastern Radio, the Brattleboro Reformer, and Brattleboro Community TV. I'm Marty Cohn. While Fish is running for a one-year seat on the Brattleboro Select Board, I'm stepping in to try and cover the topics that are areas of concern in Windham County and the towns that reside within its borders. Today, my guest is Lars Hasselblad Torres, former director of Vermont's Office of the Creative Economy at the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, and currently the executive director of Hatchspace, a community woodworking shop and school in Brattleboro. We will be discussing how Vermont could do more to, wait for it, reel in films. Welcome, Lars.
Good morning, Marty. Good one.
Okay, I'm trying. All right, so I appreciate you coming on the show. What really got my attention was there was a report to the state legislature talking about how we need to do more, or we could do more to get film production in Vermont. And I started to think about it in terms of we've got some local award-winning authors like Archer Mayer has this wonderful character, Joe Gunther, who every book for 30 years has taken place in Vermont. And then I was saying, oh my God, if we ever did a television show or a movie, how can we make sure that Joe Gunther gets filmed in Vermont? So I appreciate you coming on the show. So I just want to set some things so people understand. All right. First question I have for you is there a film bureau in Vermont?
There's not today at this time. There has been in the past, but today there's no film bureau.
Okay. So then my second question for you is, what was the Vermont Office of the Creative Economy?
The Vermont Office of the Creative Economy was a roll-in of formerly Vermont's Film Office with a new set of priorities around Vermont's digital economy. At the time, Lawrence Miller being the commissioner, and the governor had a real vision, had a real sense of optimism, I think, and momentum behind the digital economy, and wanted to ensure that there was both a framework for providing economic development support as well as a set of priorities for future growth. So that was the Office of the Creative Economy, and it did certainly include the motion picture. Okay,
and that also, when we talk about motion pictures, we're also talking about television shows and things like that.
Correct.
Okay, so why, in your opinion, why aren't more films being made in Vermont?
I think it comes down to risk, Marty. Films are risky. And unlike making, say, a taco sauce, you can't get a recipe down and then make millions of units of that thing. So the cost model for making a film doesn't really fit the economic development tools that we have here. So that's one big issue. I think the second is that, filmmaking is a highly relational endeavor. And what that means is oftentimes folks enjoy working together, and directors like cinematographers. And, the way that you bring films in is highly relational. And to my knowledge, Vermont hasn't cultivated a Rolodex with Hollywood or with filmmakers in the East. And so we lack that ability to have a point of contact on the call sheets when folks are scouting for locations, things like that. I think a third reason is, going back to the risk, is the cost. And many of the states that are competitive right now do provide very specific support to filmmakers to lower the costs and therefore kind of mitigate the risk of loss if your film doesn't do well in the box office or with distribution rights. I think the fourth is around infrastructure. When you think about unions and the unions involved in filmmaking, most of them will be out of Boston and New York, and we don't have a lot of sort of union shops here that can provide the grips or, the equipment, whatever it is that's needed to get that film done in a very timely, again, fashion, since risk is such a variable. Every day saved is a dollar saved.
So one of the things that, that has, again, when I was talking about Joe Gunther and Archer Mayer, we had back in the 80s, we had the Newhart Show. That when people say, "Hey, television show Vermont," we talk about the Newhart Show. Newhart Show was filmed in Los Angeles on a soundstage in Los Angeles, but there were these exterior shots. I think I think in Middlebury. I think they used that. Just recently on Netflix, there's a television series, Wednesday.
Yeah.
It supposedly takes place in a Vermont town called Jericho, Vermont, but it was filmed in, I want to say, I think Romania. But over the course of time, there have been films shot in Vermont. There have been films about Vermont, but for some reason, they're not able to stay here. So let's talk for a second about this guy, Jay Craven. Jay Craven is a local film producer. I think he came out with a movie last year, Lost Nation, about, I think, the Green Mountain Boys. A show, here's a Vermont director, Vermont writer, a movie about Vermont, and I think it was shot in Massachusetts. It just seems that it must have been a way to get him to shoot here in Vermont. What do you think?
I guess it comes to the question of how much should Jay lose as a businessman in making a film in Vermont, right? And, I give all credit to Jay for, he and his partner Bess have been making films for several decades now. And some of them have been feature films made here in Vermont, Where the River Runs North being one of the epic ones. And I think, as he's done this, he's gotten older, as he's tried to build really remarkable programs like Movies at Marlboro, which trained young people on the set of his films to become qualified as production assistants, as DPs, as whatever the industry required. Those programs, which he ran largely out of pocket, 24/7 fundraising, doing the hustle, never really picked up much support in Vermont. As much as we love him and we'll pat him on the back, shake his hand on the street, when it comes to the material requirements of filmmaking, those didn't exactly flow in his direction in a sustainable level. Massachusetts does have, tax credits that, when you're looking at a $200,000 deficit in your budget, really make a difference between, am I going to shoot north of the line or am I going to shoot south of the line? So I give, Jay huge amount of credit. It's not for lack of trying that his films are not shot in Vermont. I think if he had his druthers, he would bring them here and shoot them here. But just because, again, going back to the question of risk and finance, one has to be pragmatic if one wants to continue to crank out films on a regular basis, say one every 2 years. You just have to commit at some point either to great losses or to shooting out of the state. And I think Jay's made that call.
Okay, so something that you also touched on was in terms of let's talk about future filmmakers. Are there any schools in Windham County that teach kids or that can help kids become filmmakers?
That's a good question. I would start with the Windham Regional Career Technical Center and their program run by Jesse Kreitzer. Jesse is a remarkable emerging talent in filmmaking. You wouldn't know it by living here in Vermont. However, he's made some short films that are steeped in history, Black history in particular, or working class history. They're beautiful pieces. So he's worked with the Windham Regional Career Technical Center to stand up a film program there and teach young people how to work behind and in front of the camera. It's a really amazing program. The question is, well, what will those young people go on to do here in Vermont? That's not my top question. I'd love it if they could find jobs here, obviously, but I think we should be preparing our young kids to be successful anywhere. So that's one way that folks can get trained here. I don't know of another formal program, say in higher education. There is a program at Landmark College that is focused on emerging and digital media, and so young people there are able to learn the power of digital storytelling. What with closing of Marlborough College, that's probably an area of exploration that is closed. So I don't know of other opportunities. What I think is exciting and the state could be looking at and investing in is the talent that is already here. You have Willow O'Farrell, who's an amazing documentary filmmaker, and others, and building mentorships or creating incentives for these filmmakers to hire young people who can learn the skills, get a credential, a PA boot camp credential or whatever it is, as they're making their films. And again, lowering the cost of getting those films shot, edited, and on the screen would be really helpful. But I don't know of other resources, which isn't to say they aren't here. It's just not something I've kept up with. Okay,
that's great. And so there are some resources, and maybe we can get CCV and we can look more into Landmark College to about filmmakers. But you just touched on another thought, which is there are people here who are filmmakers. Most of them are doing documentaries, do you know any others that we can give a shout out to?
Yeah. I don't off the top of my head. However, one of the things that I think is exciting are the really talented, let's just say, digital storytellers more broadly. You have folks like Luke, who runs Mondo Media Works, Luke Stafford. And that company is, it's a commercial advertising agency that really tries to craft narratives about both Vermont businesses and other clients around the country. And there is, without question, a quiet ecosystem of talent here. And one of the roles for something like an office of the creative economy or a film office is to stitch those resources together, bring them together every now and then, every 3-6 months, have a conversation about what are the issues affecting your industry, what are the tools we could bring to bear to help you grow just that much faster, make that many more small films that get the Vermont brand out there. So I think there are ways that the state of Vermont can be fostering that network, documenting that network, and then making it accessible to outside viewers who may want to come in and tap the talent here for an in and out shoot. So I think there are ways that we can absolutely be supporting the talent that is here, and I think that should be the place that a new film office, were the legislature to follow the guidance of the study group, that's where they should start.
Great. Well, I should put in a plug for BCTV. Every summer has a video camp, and each year the number of kids who are coming to learn about filmmaking, and we actually have a fun thing where they choose a movie, and every kid and every group that's participating gets a scene in the movie. And they film the movie, and then they string it together, and it's really kind of a good thing. Well, Lars, as they say, that's going to be a wrap today. Thank you for coming on the show and sharing your views about what can be done to attract filmmakers to Vermont.
You're welcome, Marty. It was a total pleasure. Thank you, and good luck.
All right. Well, that's Vermontitude for today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'm Marty Cohn. Stay healthy.